Welcome to the CU Sports Magazine. I'm Rob Moody along with Todd Geary. CU coming off a tough loss to Nebraska last weekend. We'll have highlights of that game coming up, and we'll also have the latest on CU volleyball and basketball. Todd?
All right, thanks, Rob. Well, if you watched the game Saturday, then you probably have your own opinion as to what went wrong. The bus fell apart in a heartbreaking 24-7 loss to the Huskers. The stats show that this was not the same team that was averaging over 40 points and 500 yards a game. Cordell Stewart was 12 of 18 for 150 yards, no touchdowns. Salam ran for 134 and 22 carries, had CU's only touchdown. But most of those came in the second half when CU was playing catch-up. Andy Mitchell had a pretty bad day, 38 yards on 6 kicks. And about the only player who did have a decent day was Michael Westbrook, who caught 6 passes for 80 yards. CU played better in the second half, but just couldn't recover from Nebraska's blitzkrieg. In that 17-0 first half, Nebraska outgained CU 234 yards to 89. The Huskers owned the ball by holding onto it for over 21 minutes, and they held Stewart to 7 yards passing in the first half. So with the Orange Bowl just a lingering dream, CU looks to be on track for New Year's in Arizona and a berth in the Fiesta Bowl. But don't count CU out of the Orange Bowl and the National Championship yet. I'll have more on that later. Rob?
Real tough day for Colorado in Nebraska, and I was at the game, and I have to tell you that it was amazing. Nebraska came out ready to play, and just being in Lincoln, I don't think that I've ever seen a stadium like that before. The place was absolutely rocking at game time. Let's go out to Lincoln and take a look at first half highlights.
Well over 76,000 people packed in a Memorial Stadium to see Nebraska roll over CU. Tommy Frazier was on the sidelines for the Cornhuskers, but it wouldn't matter. Brooke Beringer did everything on Nebraska's first possession. He completed this 25-yard pass to Eric Alford. And the Cornhuskers were moving the ball until their center forgot Beringer wasn't 9.5 feet tall. The Cornhuskers' punting game pinned CU down at their own 3-yard line. Nebraska's special teams stood head and shoulders above CU's. CU's first possession went 3 and out, and on their second offensive set, the Nebraska offensive line pushed CU around. And then Corey Schlesinger rumbled 14 yards for a touchdown, and Nebraska led 7-0 in the first quarter. That, folks, is what you call a sea of red. Colorado would continue to struggle as Cordell Stewart goes absolutely nowhere, and he couldn't find the passing touch either, as that pass was intended for the 45-yard line. And this shovel pass was nearly picked off as Nebraska's defensive line was in the CU backfield before CU was. Nebraska kept cranking out big plays as Corey Schlesinger keeps going and going and going and going. That run set up this Nebraska field goal, which made the score 10-0. The Cornhuskers led early in the second quarter. CU started to move the ball, but it didn't come easy, and the Buffs came up empty on Neil Voskerichian's 43-yard field goal, which came up short. Nebraska then marched downfield, Brooke Beringer leading the way, and this, as they say, broke the camel's back. Child takes the pitch from Beringer and scampers in for the touchdown, and Nebraska leads 17-0 going into the half.
Rob, the Buffs really just looked really flat in the first half, did not have any spunk in them at all.
Well, they came out, and one of the things I noticed is when they did come out at the beginning of the game, Nebraska came charging out of their locker room ready to play. Colorado came out and just simply walked down the sideline. And I think that they were trying to show some team unity there, but the coaches didn't let Colorado show any emotion. And I think that was a problem. They came out and were stopped cold on their first 3 possessions. Gained a total of 8 yards on their first 3 possessions. Didn't have a first down until late in the first quarter. If you're playing at Nebraska and you don't have a first down until late in the first quarter, you're in a lot of trouble.
Something we talked about here, too, earlier was the fact that Bill McCartney admitted that he was out-coached in this game. And you have to think that Tom Osborne goes into the CU game every year telling his players, it's just another game, it's just another game. Don't get too psyched up for it. Whereas Bill McCartney, you go into the CU locker room, Nebraska is highlighted everywhere you look. So this is obviously the game of the year. And Nebraska doesn't quite look at it the same way CU does.
I think that Bill McCartney tried to tone it down a lot this year and say that it just was another game. And Cordell Stewart, of course, tried to do the same thing. But it was tough. Colorado was out-coached. They did not have a good game plan coming into this game, and Nebraska just beat them. Let's go out to Lincoln and take a look at the second half, see how it turned out.
CU came out in the second half playing the same way they left in the first, playing flat. On their first drive, they went 3 and out and gained only 6 yards, but Nebraska had CU fooled all day. Tom Osborne was brilliant using his running game to set up his tight ends. and Behringer didn't miss. He hits Alford from 30 yards out to give the Huskers a seemingly insurmountable 24-0 lead. Nebraska just smothered CU's option game, holding Stewart to 24 yards on 14 carries. But late in the third quarter, Behringer made one of his few mistakes, throwing to a well-covered receiver, Dalton Simmons there, and he gives the Buffs a glimmer of hope. The Buffs look sharp in their next possession. Stewart hits Westbrook on the slant, and Michael picks up some positive yardage to set up this run by Rashawn Salam. He goes in from 6 yards out. Voskerichian's kick is good, and CU finally gets on the board 24-7. But Dr. Tom Osborne found an unlikely hero in Brooke Behringer, and they gave the Huskers a lead and finally some respect from around the nation. The Huskers go on to beat CU, effectively removing the Buffs from the national championship race.
I think one of the things that is funny is that this game was not a whole lot different statistically. If you look down the line, total offensive yards, Nebraska gained 345, Colorado gained 314, which was surprising. Salam picked up 134 yards in the game. He's still in contention for the Heisman. In fact, he's still the favorite, even though Colorado got beat. The problem was that Colorado picked up their yardage in spurts. They never put together a long drive. The only time they put together a drive of more than 50 yards was when they scored that touchdown. That hurt them. They didn't hang on to the ball long enough, and Nebraska just walked away with the win.
And the thing was, the CU defense really played well enough to win this game. The statistics show that in the first half, Nebraska only had 203 yards rushing, their lowest total of the season, an average of 3.8 yards per game. And that's really good defensive play by the CU Buffalo defense, holding the nation's leading rushing team to that low of yardage. And 111 yards total in the second half. That's really good, and CU can't blame their defense on keeping them out of this game.
No, the defense did play well. The problem was with the offense. The offense was not clicking, and part of that was that Nebraska played a great game on defense. They had a great game plan, they were disciplined, and they stopped the option. Every time Cordell Stewart tried to run the option, there were 3 Nebraska jerseys that dragged him down, and then Colorado couldn't get anything going. And I think that Cordell Stewart didn't play that bad of a game. He did not really click, though, throwing the passes. We saw that one in the first half where it was thrown to basically no one, and he just was not clicking. And if he's not clicking, then the offense is hurting.
And the plays that they called didn't allow him and the rest of the offense to get into a good rhythm. All right, we're going to take a break on the Sports Mag, take a look at the AP Top 10, and we'll be back after this.
Need 9 quick reasons why you should make the connection in the UMC your place for fun? 20 pool tables plus tournaments every week. 10 lanes of open bowling. A complete video and pinball arcade. Live music in Club 156. Great student prices. Snacks and beer on tap. The Connection, located on the first floor in the UMC. When it's time to go back to school, there's only one place you'll need to go. The Colorado Bookstore on the Hill carries all the new and used textbooks you'll need, while also having an enormous selection of school supplies to get you started. And for those times when you'd rather be reading something a little more interesting, the Colorado Bookstore also offers a full selection of general trade books. When shopping for CU memorabilia, you'll find everything from sweatshirts to hats, plus all your other favorite souvenirs at the Colorado Bookstore, your one stop for back to school. Want good food but pressed for time in between classes? Well, there's one place you can go on campus to find all your favorites, the Alfred Packer Grill in the UMC. The grill offers a variety of foods including Mexican, fresh sandwiches, hot entrees, soup and salad, burgers, and you can even get some ice cream for dessert. The Alfred Packer Grill. Come have a friend for lunch.
Welcome back to the CU Sports Magazine. Let's talk a little bit about Oklahoma State coming into Boulder this Saturday at 12:10 to take on the Buffaloes. And this is a team that is starting to try and climb back into the Big 8 picture. They have been down in the basement for quite a long time, and Pat Jones is trying to lift them back up.
And we've seen earlier they've been using the wishbone a lot this year. Great running offense they put together this year. And David Thompson, the key to that offense, he's already got 698 yards on the season, 302 yards short of becoming Oklahoma State's second 1,000-yard rusher this decade. So just a great runner in David Thompson, and CU is really going to have to key on him to stop this Oklahoma State offense because they do have potential to score.
Well, one of the parts of the wishbone, too, that we need to mention is a kid named Andre Richardson, who picked up a total of 138 yards last week against Kansas. And with that running back and that tandem of running backs in the backfield, Oklahoma State does have the possibility of scoring a lot of points, like you said. And this series with Colorado has been documented as having a lot of weird games. The last two have not been as bad, but a lot of fourth-quarter scoring, a lot of upsets, a lot of weird plays, a lot of fake field goals in the past. And so if Oklahoma State hangs in this game, they could be tough for Colorado.
And CU does lead the game difference here at 10-6 for CU at Folsom Field, so they do have a little bit of an advantage there. Another advantage is OSU's wide receiver Mark Cheatwood is out of the game. He suffered 2 broken ribs in last week's game, and he will not return for the season. Not looking good for Cheatwood. We hope he gets better. But CU, of course, missing Matt Lepsis out with a separated shoulder. He will have surgery on that, so he is out for the season. We look to have him back next year. But receiving ends are kind of both teams have receivers that are missing, but CU has their key receivers in the game.
Colorado has won 5 straight in this series, and so I have to think that Colorado will continue along those lines. I don't imagine that Oklahoma State will actually be able to hang in this ballgame. So the line is 29.5 points, and I think that Colorado will walk away with this game, especially after losing to Nebraska. And I think one of the things is that the seniors are really going to come out. Michael Westbrook, Christian Fourier, Cordell Stewart, they're going to come out and they're going to show this Oklahoma State team that Colorado is still in the hunt for a top 5 position here, and they're not pushovers. And I think they're going to walk all over Oklahoma State come Saturday.
I think they are too. All right, well, let's see how Oklahoma State did last week and the rest of the Big 8. We start in Norman this week, where the Sooners hosted Kansas State. And the State set the tone early in this one, blocking OU punt and running it in for an early 7-3 lead. The two teams sat on that score until the third quarter when Chad May started to warm up. He hits his running back on the quick pass, Brown takes it in untouched, and K-State was looking good. I have 3 words for you: Chad May, NFL. This guy is good. He hit Schweigert on the fade, perfect touch on the ball. Wildcats were pouring it on. OU still had some fight in them, though. Tight end Michael McDaniel gets the pass over the middle. I hate to say it, but he could go all the way, and he does. 67 yards, OU sealed in it. This tells you what kind of day it was for Oklahoma. The PAT is fumbled. They try to salvage 2 points, but K-State is there for the pick, and the 2 points of their own. K-State goes on to win 37-20. Next, we head to Ames, Iowa, where the Cyclones hosted Missouri. Todd Doxson had the wishbone working well today.
Here is Doxson rolling out to his left, tucks it underneath. He's back to the 45, to midfield, to the 45 of Missouri, cutting back to the 40, on his feet at the 35, to the 30, all the way down to the 27-yard line.
Jeff Haney set up the Cyclones all day, though, picking away with the short pass. Now watch number 38. That's 270-pound fullback Michael Washington. Yes, I said 270 pounds, and he uses all of it to put Mizzou on the board. Then ISU drives to the 1, and on 4th and goal, running back Jim Knott takes it in, keeping the Cyclones in it. But Missouri's defense stays up and puts this one away. Defensive tackle Damon Simon picks off the pass at the line and runs it in himself. Tigers go on to win 34-20, and head coach Jim Walton won't be in Ames next year. He resigned on Thursday, effective at season's end. Next, we head to Lawrence, where the Jayhawks hosted Oklahoma State. Kansas took control of this one early as L.T. Levine takes the handoff from Ashiki Preston and motors 62 yards to put the Jayhawks up 7-0. But OSU wasn't out of it yet.
Now they go on the ground, and here's a big gain up the middle. It may go the distance, in fact. Andre Richardson right up the middle. He's at the 20, hit from behind and tackled at the 5-yard line.
The Cowboys try to punch it in, but now OSU was out of it. Jayhawks go on to beat Oklahoma State 24-14.
Sorry, Todd. You saw Andre Richardson there at the end. It looked a little bit like Rashawn Salam, taking it all the way down the field, breaking the big gain, and being pulled down at the last minute. But he will be a key in that game on Saturday. If he can break a couple like that, too, Oklahoma State will be right there.
Needs that high-octane gas to get a little extra kick there at the end. All right, let's take a look at last week's pick, see how Rob and I did. I didn't do very good at all.
Yeah, I kind of walked away with this one. If you go down the list, Colorado, Nebraska, we both picked CU, and Nebraska came out and won there. Missouri won that Iowa State game, so I'm up 1 there. And then you go down to Kansas State and Oklahoma. Kansas State won that game. I'm now up by 2. Kansas versus Oklahoma State. Kansas won. We both picked that right. So you continue down the list. Ohio State versus Wisconsin. We both picked Wisconsin. And that was, I'm looking at this week's
Penn
pick.
State. Ohio State versus Penn State. Penn State killed them, of course, 63-7 or some outrageous number like that. So
The worst loss in Ohio State history.
yeah.
So I'm up through.
I really
2
thought
again.
that Ohio State would be able to play better there. They were ranked number 24 coming into that game, but obviously they're
And
not
now the
worth it.
surprise there you see at the bottom, Oregon and Arizona. Oregon comes out and beats Arizona, and all of a sudden the Oregon Ducks are in the hunt to go to the Rose Bowl. If they beat Washington State in the coming weeks, they're on their way to play in LA at the Rose Bowl, which is a big surprise coming out of the Pac-10.
And they'll be playing Penn State. So that could be a good game. We'll be rooting for the Ducks to upset Penn State. Go see you.
Let's take a look at this week's picks. I kind of led into them earlier. Colorado versus Oklahoma State. That's kind of a no-brainer. Colorado should beat the Cowboys without much problem. You continue down the list to Kansas State and Iowa State. And again, I've talked all year about how bad Iowa State really is, and we both take Kansas State.
I really
there.
like Todd Doxson. I think that his ability alone is going to get ISU at least 1 year out of the season. He's a great option quarterback, and I think that they might be able to pick up 1 win this year. And, of course, the head coach out of there just couldn't take it. A little pressure from the administration, and he will not be back next year.
This could be Iowa State's first winless season in a long time. They have on their schedule still Colorado and Nebraska, and so they got a long haul in front of them to get that 1 win.
Absolutely. All right, moving down the line, Oklahoma versus Missouri. We both take OU in that one. OU's a pretty good team. Should take care of Missouri handily. Nebraska versus Kansas. We both like NU. Of course, Nebraska number 1 in the AP this week, and they're going to be rolling.
I think that Nebraska will just continue to win. I can't see them going 10-1 or losing any games. The only possibility would be with Oklahoma at season's end. But I think Nebraska will go 11-0, and I think they'll beat Kansas pretty handily. You go down the list, you've got Ohio State and Wisconsin. These are our picks of the week. And Colorado State versus Wyoming. Wisconsin has done real well the last couple of weeks. They beat Michigan, and now they're taking on Ohio State. I think they'll beat them.
I think Wisconsin's going to do real well. Steve Bevel, of course, came back off an injured arm and threw 5 touchdown passes last week, I think it was, and played very well. Played much better than he played when they came to Boulder. But played well enough to get a big win. And you never know, you might see Wisconsin back in the top 25 by season's end if they keep playing like that.
And then you go down the list, Colorado State and Wyoming, the border war up north, and I have to take CSU in that one. I think that the Rams are still in the hunt here to win the WAC if Utah can lose along the way. And I think they're going to beat Wyoming.
Of course, the Rams did fall to number 17 in the AP poll earlier this year. Still, if they win out their season, they've got a real good chance to go to a good bowl and play a good team. So CSU looking to finish off their season strong, and I think they're going to be able to beat the Cowboys. Always a real good. It's almost like an in-state rivalry, but not quite.
Yeah, it's a big border war up there, and it's a big deal. CSU and Wyoming going at it on Saturday. We'll see what happens in that game. We'll be back on the Sports Magazine with volleyball and basketball news after this.
Most college students, especially in Boulder, understand the consequences of not recycling. CU Recycling Services provide recycling receptacles all over campus in an attempt to make recycling something you can be a part of. So please recycle. The habits you pick up now last a lifetime.
Recycle for life. It's more than just a trend.
Welcome back to the CU Sports Magazine. The CU volleyball team improved to 7-1 Wednesday night, beating the Oklahoma Sooners in 3 straight games, 7-1 in the Big 8, I should say. CU dominated every offensive category and was led by Leah Williams, who had a .500 hitting percentage. The Buffs rebounded from their loss to Nebraska last weekend, and the Cornhuskers come to Boulder November 16th for the rematch. Coach Brad Sandin talked about his team and how they're playing.
I don't think against a good opponent have we risen to the occasion and played at our level. And we have a month here left to do it, and the Big 8 title's still up for grabs here. And so we're focused on trying to peak for that. And I still think we have a good chance to host an NCAA match here, and certainly to be heard from in the NCAA tournament. And hopefully our best volleyball is yet to come this season.
All right, we start out this week's Buff Bits with some basketball news. Donnie Boyce has been cleared to practice at full speed with the rest of the team. Boyce had been sidelined, of course, since this summer with a stress fracture in his leg. Texas prep star Calvin Davis, who had been recruited heavily by CU, has committed to Texas A&M, so he's out of the loop. But Chauncey Billups has said CU is still on his short list for teams he'd like to play for. The All-American point guard from Denver's George Washington High School has listed CU along with Georgia Tech, California, Michigan, and Kansas, as teams he'd like to play for. He said he won't commit until spring, so we'll keep you updated on where he goes. Yesterday was Basketball Media Day at CU, and Joe Harrington had a chance to talk about an improved team.
The practices, because of our new players and returning players, have been very, very competitive. I like that. I think this team is quite strong physically. Not a real tall team, but it's a strong, quick team. And they're physical, and they're playing aggressive basketball. And I'll tell you this: I told the players yesterday. It's fun to practice again. Last year was less fun to practice. Okay, this year it's fun to practice.
In football news, Cordell Stewart is among 6 college quarterbacks chosen as finalists for the Johnny Unitas Golden Arm Award. The award is given to the nation's top senior quarterback. Stewart's competition is pretty stiff, though, with USC's Rob Johnson, Kansas State's Chad May, Alcorn State's Steve Air McNair, who you might remember Sports Illustrated chose him to win the Heisman Trophy this year, Georgia's Eric Zeiler, and Alabama's Jay Barker are all in the hunt. On the injury list this week, tight end Matt Lepsis, as I said earlier, is out for the season with a separated shoulder. He had 2 receptions for 18 yards against the Huskers Saturday. Desmond Dennis will replace him at tight end against OSU. Steve Rosga had an knee injury in the game, but MRI tests show no damage, and he should be available for Saturday's game. And head coach Bill McCartney had his wrist broken when his quarterback Cordell Stewart inadvertently ran into him on his own sidelines in Lincoln, and McCartney will wear a soft cast, but doctors say he should be available to coach for the game. Bob Simmons, CU's linebacker coach, is interested in the head coaching job at Ohio. Simmons has been with CU for 7 years, and has coached the likes of Alfred Williams, Canavis McGee, Chad Brown, Leonard Renfro. Not a bad resume there, Bob. Now that CU Orange Bowl scenario I told you about earlier, in the coalition poll, CU could meet Nebraska in the Orange Bowl for the national championship if Penn State, Florida, Miami, Alabama drop below Colorado, and Florida State stays below Colorado. No sweat, right, Rob?
We'll see what happens there. The CU, turning to basketball, the CU women's basketball team has won back-to-back Big 8 championships, and last year they made it into the Sweet 16 of the NCAA tournament. This year's team expects to do more than that. Led by All-American candidate Shelly Sheets, the Buffs return a talented crew and bring in even more talent from France in the 6-foot, 5-inch frame of Isabelle Fijakowski. Head coach Seal Berry talked about the team and her players.
We're looking forward to a really good season, exciting season, obviously. We've been in practice about 17 days. I think we have better depth inside and better depth on the perimeter, much better than we had last season. And probably in terms of overall talent, I think we definitely have more than we've had any year that I've been here.
The Buffs will open their season with an exhibition game November 7th in the Event Center. CU's picked anywhere from 7th to 14th in the major preseason polls, and they are picked to win the Big 8 yet again by the coaches in the conference. Coach Berry has yet to name the team's starting lineup, but with the talent on this team, expect the starting five to change throughout the season. As a reminder, you will see Coach Barry here on the Sports Magazine during the season. Turning to cross country, the third-ranked CU women's cross country team dominated the Big 8 championships in Manhattan, Kansas last weekend. The Buffs were led by junior Patty Roberts, who finished second in the race, and CU placed 6 runners in the top 10. CU coach Jerry Quiller talked about the women's team.
It's kind of interesting. They had their very best performance the whole year at the Big 8. Ran just like champs, and every one of them came through. We didn't have a weak spot. And I thought, surely on the basis of that and how they really demolished the conference,